today's interview. I'm joined by Vanessa Sturman, who have been friends for quite a while, Vanessa, and I know you are ultra busy. So thank you for joining us, and do give us a quick update about what you've been up to.
Oh, well, it's great to join you. So, I'm Vanessa Sturman. I'm a transformational health coach and now a multi award winning speaker. So, I've just won another award for my speaking. And I basically help people eat their way to great performance, a healthy weight, great resilience with delicious food that's built into your busy lifestyle. And I help people eat more plant based food, go plant based, and make sure that that fits in with the planet and educate people on why we need to do this for sustainability, why we need to do this for our health and for the animals. And it's very, very exciting. And I've just been made a health expert for BBC Radio Oxfordshire and Berkshire. So I've been talking about some quite interesting things with them as well.
So that's amazing, and I know that you do basic, quite interesting work because you work specialised with one-to-one individuals, especially helping transition to fully plant-based lifestyles, and with a real emphasis, as you said, on really like getting the best out of food and enjoying food that fits in. So I'll ask you more about that in a minute. But then there's also another really interesting aspect that you do a lot of media work, and that kind of involves, shifts on a bigger picture, if you like. So not just an individual shift, but also shifts, changes in systems, changes in subsidies, changes on a bigger picture through councils all the way up to global change. But I'll just ask you first about your work you do with individuals. So tell us just a bit more about that.
Yeah, so I work with individuals actually no matter what their dietary preference based on evidence and basically help them have the healthiest way of eating that they can. And this is so important if you're looking to be fully plant based as well, because let's face it, most people are not educated in nutrition at all. So we don't want to be doing guesswork when we put food on the plate. Yes, we do want to have lots of colors and variety, but we need to make sure we are getting the nutrients we need, that we are full, that we are helping to prevent disease, and that we actually enjoy it and it builds into our busy life. So I really look at the practicalities of what goes on in someone's day and make sure they are building in the right foods and balance that is really, really going to help them.
Yeah, because it's worth pointing out. I was just thinking while listening to you there, how many thousands of foodstuffs, food choices there are on a plant-based lifestyle. What is your experience? How easy do you find people take to transition into plant-based?
Well, in the end, this happens with everyone. Even if someone is not intending to do that, you get people who really want to do that. You even get people who are already vegan who are not eating in the healthiest way. And once people understand what they can add and adapt, those are my two big things: add and adapt. I do these for talks in corporates as well. For anyone to build more of this in. That once they understand that actually something like, they might say, "I've been having a bowl of oats for breakfast," and I thought oats were healthy. They are, by the way, they are healthy. But this person might be saying, it's not really filling me up. We need to add. We need to add more to this. Let's add some chia seeds. Let's add more great omega 3s. We're going to add some hemp seeds, some linseed. Let's add a load of fruit. You can even put protein powder in there as well. That's absolutely fine. You're going to have a much more balanced, filling, wonderful meal. All we've done is add and adapt to that. And if you want to get fancy, you can make a tofu chocolate pudding to go on top with some cacao powder and dates if you really, really want. But once they understand they can actually just adapt what they're already doing, people take to it very, very quickly. And I am known for getting people really great results in one session because we are just making changes to what they're already doing so they can actually go and do it from today and tomorrow.
And from your experience too, I would think you would agree that it's absolutely your right to be a bit confused by, how to go about getting a healthy diet. But once you've got there, and once you've understood the nuts and bolts, and that got that simplicity, really, it is actually, from my experience, but I'd be interested to see if you agree, pretty straightforward. I suppose I eat about 40 different foods generally. I've got 40 different plant-based options in my kitchen that I eat. daily or pretty much every, certainly weekly, all the time. How easy do you think once you got there? Do you think it's basically just habit forming, really, isn't it, for a lot of people?
Yeah, it is. It is. It becomes so much easier. It's a bit like driving a car. You know, if after only 2 lessons the driving instructor said, "I'm off, you're on your own," you might go,
Uh,
I don't really know what I'm doing. I actually need a bit more help. But now you're there. You're playing your music, driving your car because you've learned it. You've developed the habit. You've understood how everything works. You've had to have a breakdown of how everything works before you just get in your car and you're absolutely fine. And I think it's very similar with nutrition. Although the learning never stops. We can be developing new recipes. We learn new
yeah.
things in development. We go, actually, I should be adding that. Or I have people who've been, for a long time done things really, really well, but they need me to have a look at their food because they're going, I'm just not quite, there's something, I'm not quite getting full enough and we just need a little adaptations. I have to go and look at my food sometimes and go, okay, I just need to recalibrate a bit. But you're completely right. Once we understand, really good balance that goes on our plate, we understand how to get variety, we've got a good roster of recipes, we know what maybe goes in our bag for snacks or whatever it is. And yeah, it's just like a habit, but we are not taught about nutrition. So people come into this expecting themselves to know absolutely everything about it. And the fact is, you're just not going to, because we're not taught this stuff properly. And that's why there's people like me and loads of other wonderful people around who are giving people help in this area.
So before we go move on, I just ask you too. You've mentioned, you do some work now with Oxford Council, and I think you mentioned BBC Radio Oxford. Um, well, on a bigger picture, just how important is this shift? I think we know how important it is for individuals.
Mm. It is so important and it's not talked about enough. There is a huge amount of misinformation in this area. Going vegan is probably the most impact an individual can have on the environment and our planet. And I want to give just an idea of the scale, because sometimes people think, why is it if I pick this from the supermarket, it has so much more of a big an impact than if I choose the the chickpeas over the chicken? Why is this having such a big impact? And you hear a lot of myths, people saying, yeah, but growing all that food for vegans, that must that must take a lot of impact on our planet. Now, we kill about 80 billion land animals every year. This isn't even including the trillions of fish and sea life that we kill. 80 billion land animals a year. Now, if you imagine every one of those beings needs to be fed and watered. They eat plants. Most of the plants are being fed to them. Now, in order to grow plants, we have to deforest we have deforest huge amounts of rainforest to grow these crops. Deforestation, fertilizers, pesticides, huge amounts of water in order to do this. Now, this is why David Attenborough said recently, and backed up by science, that if we all switch to a plant forward way of eating, we could use 3/4 less land than we currently use for agriculture. Now, that land can be reforested. This would help the planet. We're in a climate crisis at the moment because of that huge burden that those farmed animals actually put on our planet. And just to give you another stat that might really shock you, in terms of the biomass of mammals on Earth, so we're included in that. So, take the mass of all the mammals on Earth, only 4%, 4% are wild animals. 4%. About 34 are humans, the rest are farmed animals. Now, you think of the pressure and resources that is putting on our planet. So, it is a lot more efficient for us to just eat plants instead of feeding all those plants, more plants than we would ever need to eat, to animals in order to get calories. Now, this also creates problems for our oceans. I'm just skimming the surface, by the way. You can go and watch things like Cowspiracy. It'll give you, and I Could Never Go Vegan. It gives a really, really good breakdown of this stuff as well. I'm just giving you top level. But if you think about the excrement 80 billion land animals produces, that goes somewhere, goes into our oceans and rivers. It creates something called nitrogen dead zones. Sea life can't thrive. It is having so many impacts all over our planet, and we really, really need to reduce. And I'll give you one more thing as well, because this might come up if you talk to anyone about it. They may say, yeah, but soy is destroying the planet. Loads of soy causes, deforestation. About 85% of all the soy grown is fed to animals. So it's actually not, vegans are not causing the deforestation, but these arguments will come up when you talk to people. I've even had people on TV ask me and put this out, saying, no, soy is destroying the planet. Not that they let me answer anything, but this happens. So I hope that's given a good overview of that real pressure animal agriculture is having on planet Earth.
It has, Vanessa. Thank you. So thanks very much, Vanessa, and thank you very much for joining us on the Why Go Vegan 30-day challenge today.